Hello, everybody. Kiana McIntosh here, licensed therapist, social worker, and founder of Resonate Empowerment Solutions, private practice based here in Alabama, where we don't just talk about patterns, we change them. So, today we are going to focus on self awareness and why it isn't enough to change. Many of us are very, very self aware. We can tell you why we procrastinate, why we respond the way that we respond, why oftentimes you may date emotionally unavailable people. I can tell you why I people please. I can tell you why I shut down. I can tell you why I am avoidant. Yet, I cannot implement change. I cannot change even though I understand. So many times when I'm working with clients and they come in and they say things like, "Oh no, Kiana, like I understand why I did what I did. Like I know me. I know why I did that. I did that because growing up I saw X, Y, and Z. And all those things are great and true. However, they also mention, but I feel so stuck. I feel like no matter how hard I try, I end up back in the same place. I'm repeating the same pattern over and over again, even though I have the insight and the knowledge to know that I am doing the same thing. If this is you, if you've ever questioned yourself in that way, or even spoke to your therapist in that way, this video is for you. We're going to walk through how to begin to move from insight and awareness to behavioral change. If you've ever asked yourself, so why do I keep doing it? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over? The simple answer is because self awareness is only the first step, and a very powerful step, might I add. Healing is not about just knowing. Healing is about doing something different, changing behaviors, right? So today, like I mentioned before, we're going to focus on the real question. How do you actually change behavior, not just understand them? So let's start here. Most behaviors are automatic. They're not decisions. Many of us have learned through trial and error on how to respond to certain things. So let's think of it as trauma. Oftentimes I hear clients say things like, well, I remember when the first time I ever voiced how I felt, I was told to shut up and be quiet or I got in trouble. So the reason that you repeat some of these patterns isn't because you just want to, it's because it is a nervous system issue. Your body learned to survive. If I don't want to get reprimanded, if I don't want to get in trouble, I learned to shut up. I learned to shrink, right? So it's not so much as I just want to keep repeating these same behaviors. It's that your body has not yet identified that I don't have to continue to survive. So these patterns are now survival responses, right? So another example could be I get defensive because of childhood trauma. That doesn't mean your body won't get defensive when you feel criticized because it's still going to happen. Even if you know this is what's going on, I avoid conflict because I'm scared of rejection. That doesn't mean you're suddenly going to start speaking up for yourself, right? Because behavior changes don't happen overnight and they definitely don't happen just because I understand them, right? Change requires interruption. change requires practice. So just because I know does not mean I'm going to change. I now have to interrupt because behaviors don't change through just understanding alone, they change through interruptions and repetition. So that means that in order to change these patterns, I have to interrupt them immediately, shut it down, immediately shut it down, interrupt these patterns, these negative thoughts, whatever it is, you have to interrupt it. And then also, I have to practice. The only way that we become good or better at things is if we practice it. Part two, behavior change start with one question. In therapy, I often ask clients, what do you do when you feel that feeling? What do you do when you feel that feeling? Not what do you think, not why do you feel it, but what do you do? Because I ask this question because the behavior is the pattern. For example, when you feel anxious, do you avoid it? When you feel insecure, do you seek reassurance? When you feel overwhelmed, do you shut down? Do you when you feel lonely, do you text the person that hurt you, right? When you feel stressed, do you often procrastinate? So the goal here isn't just noticing the feeling, the goal is noticing the behavior that is attached to this feeling, right? So what follows, that is where the work truly begins. So, number three, you don't break habits with awareness. You break them by replacement. I'll say that again. You don't break habits with awareness. You break habits with replacement. Many of us often try to stop habits, right? Many of us, with the new year coming in, right? It's like we are trying to reinvent ourselves and we recognize certain habits are not beneficial for us. Going back to that awareness, right? So, in order for us to break that habit, we must replace it. You cannot stop a behavior without replacing it. The reason for that is because the most behaviors are coping strategies. This is how we learn to survive and cope with life stressors. So that even applies to the unhealthy ones. So if you're trying to stop overeating, if you're trying to stop being avoidant, exploding when you're upset, strolling, oh God, that's a big one. Overworking yourself, shutting down, people pleasing, you have to ask yourself, what is this behavior doing for me? Because the thing is, the behavior that you're exhibiting, the behavior that you continue to use as your coping strategy, it is doing something for you. Usually, it's either reducing anxiety, it's helping you to avoid discomfort, it's helping you to create a level of control, right? It's protecting you from rejection, right? It may even be numbing the pain. So what is that behavior doing for me? The example that I would use is going back to dating. And I'm going to go to dating because a lot of my clients come in and they're like, oh yeah, Kiana, we're back dating, da 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 da, all the things, right? And my question is, they're like, oh yeah, I called him. I was laying in bed, I was feeling lonely. It was Valentine's Day, so I called, and now we're back together. Okay, so what did that behavior, calling him, what did that keep you from doing, right? What did that behavior do for you? So for some, it may have helped them to avoid the discomfort of being alone. Not to say that it's wrong, because you do what you do. That's not to say that my client is wrong or they are wrong. It's just to say if you are trying to break habits, you have to do something different. So now that you're feeling lonely, what else could we have done to help avoid that discomfort? Although avoiding discomfort is never the answer, right? However, maybe you could have journaled, get it out. Maybe you could have phoned a friend, talked to that friend. Maybe you could have went to a Galentine's event. Find something to replace that behavior or that pattern, right? Because at the end of the day, the brain needs a new exit ramp. We cannot continue to take I 65 when we need to be on I 85. We have to figure out how to redirect, and the only way to redirect undesired behavior is to replace it with a more healthy and desired behavior after you have become self aware. Okay, so the next one is number 4. Most people wait to feel ready. And the truth is, behavior change means acting before you feel ready. Acting before you feel ready. Let's get into that one. I have heard so many times from various clients, even before I started private practice, that they will set boundaries when they feel ready. I don't feel confident right now, so they don't set boundaries. Or they're going to start that business, or they're going to go back to school, or they're going to do all these things when they feel ready. And the truth is, guys, that you may never feel ready, right? So people think that they need the confidence. They need this confidence boost. You need this assurance that this is going to be amazing. That goes back to that procrastination, right? But the thing is, that's not true. Confidence comes after the behavior. After you recognize, like, oh, dang it, I can do that. I'll give you guys a great story. Before I went into private practice, I had been talking about private practice for a while, but I was afraid. My full time job paid me really well. I had benefits, maybe not the best work environment, but I kept putting it off. I wasn't ready. I needed more learning. I needed to get more certifications, all of the things. Until one day I realized you're never going to be ready to your standard. And it wasn't even a realization from me, it was a realization from a friend that said, Kiana, you're never going to feel like you're ready. So, this is to say, and when you're ready to change that behavior, you're not going to be ready to change that behavior, right? You're probably not going to have the confidence, and that's okay. So, oftentimes I tell people too that motivation comes after the movement. So, stop waiting to be motivated to make the change. If you know that this behavior is detrimental to your mental health, or you are tired of just repeating the same cycles, you're probably not going to be motivated because your brain has not caught up with that yet, right? Your body has not caught up with this, right? So most growth happens while you feel uncomfortable. So if you're waiting until it feels natural, you're probably going to stay stuck. And that's coming from an empowerment therapist, right? Because behavior change is choosing different while your brain is screaming. Because our brain likes familiarity. Like, I like to do what is familiar to me. You're not going to be ready, my guy. Okay, so next, let's talk about emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is behavioral. Many people believe that Emotional regulation is something that you understand. It is not. It is not. It is something that you practice. When you feel activated or you feel triggered, your new behavior might be breathing before you respond, walking away, unclenching your body, right? Loosen up those shoulders, naming the emotion. That's a big one. Naming the emotion out loud, saying what it really is. Not I'm angry. No, you're disappointed. I am disappointed because I did not expect that from you, right? Taking a walk instead of sending a text message. I feel lonely, maybe I'll take a walk versus texting him this long paragraph that he's probably not going to read. Drink water. What they say, drink your water, mind your business. Drink some water, slow down, regulate yourself. And sometimes you just have to pause instead of reacting. That's behavioral, right? That is behavior. And healing looks like I still feel angry, but I don't have to explode. Healing can look like I still feel anxious, but I don't have to avoid it. It could look like I still feel insecure, but I don't have to self abandon. Oh, that's a big one. I'm going to say that one again. I still feel insecure, but I don't have to self abandon. That is progress, y'all. That is what healing truly looks like. That is what changing patterns look like. Breaking these cycles. That's what that looks like. It doesn't negate that the feeling is still there. It just says that I can still feel these things and not respond in that way. I don't ever want you guys to think that when we talk about changing your behaviors, it's about invalidating your experience. I am a very, I have a very coachy style of therapy. But even in that coachy style of therapy, we're going to validate your experience and we're going to walk through why you feel that way. Why did you feel the need to respond? Where do you feel like this behavior initiated from, right? Where's the origin of this behavior? We're gonna walk through and talk through all of those things so that you not only have the self awareness, you also will have the skills because we're gonna talk about what could I have done differently, what could I have said to myself, right? Because we walk through those things, right? But also in order to stop being stuck, we have to not only acknowledge the emotion, we have to also acknowledge what is that behavior, going back to the top, what is that behavior doing for me? What is that behavior doing for me? And it is not, again, it is not to invalidate the experience that you have or the emotions that you feel. It's to just recognize that there is a different way to handle it. There's a new way that I can respond. So now we're going to get into behavior change and why it requires repetition, not just breakthrough. So one of the funny things that I have with some of my colleagues is that oftentimes people will come to therapy and they will be there for maybe a month or two and they're coming consistently and then I start to recognize that they are dwindling off, which is fine, right? However, they'll say things like therapy didn't work or therapy doesn't work. And I want to normalize something for you guys. When you are trying to heal and you're trying to change, it is boring. It is painful, right? And so, in that boredom, you have to know that you're probably going to get over on the other side. you, but you have to work towards it, right? It's not like these aha moments, and I think sometimes you have aha moments, right? However, I think a lot of people won't change, but because it's boring, we don't stay the course. Because it's difficult, we don't stay the course because we're looking for those aha moments and just think that it's automatically going to change. And that goes back to the beginning. Just because you are aware and you understand does not mean that you're going to change. So I say that to say that when we think about behavior change, no matter what behavior you're trying to change, you have to be consistent and repetitive. You have to be consistent and repetitive. So when we think about change, behavior change, it says that I'm gonna show up again. I'm gonna do the hard thing again and again. I'm gonna pause if I need to again and again. I'm gonna try again and again. I will mess up again and again, right? One thing about our nervous system, because again, remember these patterns are related to our nervous system and how we learn to cope. So, one thing about our nervous system, we learn through repetition. Our nervous system learns through repetition. So, many times people start when they recognize they don't feel like they're changing, they don't feel like they're making progress. And so they begin to question their abilities. Why am I still here? So, next, when you are on the verge of changing or you're working to change certain behaviors that are undesirable, or changing or break these cycles and change these patterns, right? You have to expect resistance. Anytime you change a behavior, your brain will push back because this is unfamiliar, and our brain likes old behavior because it keeps you safe. When we try new things, our brain is signaled that danger is near, right? So we get the signal that this is dangerous because it's unfamiliar, it does not know what to expect. So, with that in mind, know that when you are changing, there's going to be a lot of resistance because your brain is always going to go back to what has kept you safe, even if it's unhealthy. Even if it is unhealthy. And so, expect thoughts to pop up for you like, this won't work. Oh my God, I feel so stupid. Um, they're just gonna be mad at me. I can't handle this. I can't do this. You're gonna have those thoughts. Those thoughts are gonna come up over and over and over again, but you have to interrupt them. You have to interrupt them, right? We cannot ruminate on them. And even when those thoughts come up, I also want to let you guys know that that does not mean you are a failure or that you are failing. That just means that your brain wants to go back to what has kept you safe thus far. And so, in that process of withdrawing from old behaviors, know that that's going to come up for you, and that's okay. So, as most of you guys know, I work with a lot of clients that have ADHD, um, as well as individuals that have relational trauma. So, they are repeating patterns. And the same goes for my ADHD clients. And so, one of my favorite questions that I like to ask in sessions is, what would it look like if you did the healthy thing for 2 minutes? You don't have to do it forever. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. Just give me 2 minutes. What would that look like? And so that begins to interrupt that behavior, right? Because behavior doesn't start with these big, huge transformations. And when I have individuals that come in and they are, at their wits' end with certain behaviors that they have these really large goals and they just want to change everything and they become so overwhelmed. And then here I come saying, give me 2 minutes. Only think about what that's going to look like for 2 minutes. Then we're going to say 2 minutes a day. Okay. Then that's, now we're doing that 10 minutes a day. Now we're implementing this for 24 hours. We're just going where you continue to increase, right? And especially those that are like in the process of learning how to set boundaries in their lives. What would it look like to tell one person no? What would that look like? And so it's those really small interruptions that help you move forward and help you begin to change. So it's one boundary, one pause, one different choice or different decision than you've done in the past. That's how you start to build this new identity. It does not happen overnight, and you have to learn to take baby steps. You have to learn to take baby steps. So I want to close with this. Self awareness is powerful, but it is not the goal. The goal is new responses, new choices, new patterns, new behaviors. Healing is not about knowing why you struggle, it's about practicing what helps. So if you are someone that is self aware but still feels stuck and you want to break those cycles of undesired patterns, I want you to know that it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you are messing up in life. It means that you are ready to take the next step. Now that I am self aware, I'm ready to implement action. I'm ready to be repetitive and start changing the behaviors that have kept me stuck for so long. So, I will see you guys the next time. If this resonates with you, please share, like, and subscribe. And be on the lookout for my next discussion. So, y'all have a good night. Bye.